Hello, my friends. Welcome to a very cozy video. This video is going to be like a hug of sunshine, I think. And that's because I am going to kind of go through my whole experience in Spain, the art retreat that I taught there, the travel, some of the amazing places we went to, what we painted. And along the way, there is so much gorgeous, sunny scenery. So yeah, I think if you are looking for a video to just lift your spirits, this is probably it. For my beverage today, I have some buttermint tea. I'll put a little logo or something on the screen. This really delicious, creamy, minty tea. Like I said, the purpose of the trip was for me to teach an art retreat, and I had an absolutely amazing time. I've had 2 retreats now with UpTrek, and both of them were spectacular. And it was my first time in Spain. I had no idea what to expect in terms of scenery, or I had an idea of weather just based on like apps and stuff, but I was very surprised at how hot it was, which I guess it's just because I had come from Scotland. When I left Scotland, it was just dipping into autumn. The air was a little bit crisp. Leaves were starting to change. It was a really lovely time of year. And while I was away, most of the autumn came and went. I flew into Seville and drove to Almeria, which is like the southern region we were going to be staying. And my first impressions were that it felt very tropical and deserty at the same time. The venue for the retreat, which from now on I'm going to call the Finca, was absolutely stunning. It had the most gorgeous groundskeeping, lots of deserty plants, and because it was surrounded by so much desert, it was obviously well irrigated and well looked after, because it felt like we were in our own little oasis there. And it was gorgeous because in addition to the beautiful property, everywhere you looked around were like mountains. Just about to go down and meet everyone for the first time. They're arriving. So excited. Just like my retreat in France, this location had an incredible private chef, and we were super spoiled all week with food. I won't focus too much on the food, but I will give you like glimpses of what we had almost each day. One of the best things was in the morning. I would wake up before breakfast and kind of wander around the property, just enjoying the sunrise, which was so gorgeous every single morning. It was a very welcome change from what I'm often used to this time of year in Scotland, which is just gray. And I really, really soaked up the sun, the sunrises, the colors, everything. It was so inspiring. And for day 1 of the retreat, I wanted to keep it very simple. I wanted all of us to ease into that creative mindset. So we started with simple color exercises, everyone just going at their own pace. I give the instruction and then I set them free to do the tasks. And that was really fun because it also gives us time to chat and get to know each other and just have fun geeking out about color mixing and, of course, art supplies. As most of you know, I jump between gouache and watercolor all the time. I often even use them interchangeably. But for most of the demos at this retreat, I leaned a little bit more towards gouache because that's what people wanted. And I did do watercolor now and then too. Anyway, for the second half of day 1, we focused on plein air. So it was kind of a mini introduction to getting outside and painting from observation. And I did a little demo of the distant hills, which was nice because I could see it from inside the cozy studio where we had AC. And then everyone went off and did their thing, and I could walk around and help people individually. And that was a really fun way to start the week. I loved the energy of this group. Everyone was so enthusiastic. A lot of people would go out and paint on their own in between stuff and also late into the night, which I loved. The next day we had another gorgeous sunrise. And then we did a little exercise to warm up with watercolor and ink, because I think this is one of the most fun and free ways to get into a creative mindset in the morning. Just doing a little ink sketch with some splashy watercolor. And then after that little warm up, and because it was such a gorgeous day, we went outside for some more plein air. And I did a little watercolor and ink demo of one of the buildings. So many little corners of this property were beautiful and paintable. And I was very much drawn to the shadows in a lot of areas. So I focused on one little section, and a lot of people painted that, but also people could go off and do whatever they wanted. And then I walked around again and helped people individually. This was a fun afternoon because it was probably the most perfect weather day. It was all pretty hot, but I felt like the breeze and the sun, and you could, if you sat in the shade, it was just the perfect combination. But because I had been outside most of that day, I really felt it. So I definitely had to jump in the pool. Okay, it's cooler than I thought. And then after a lovely dinner, we hit the hay because the next morning we were leaving very early for our first adventure, and we were going to Granada for the entire day. Along the way, there is so much beautiful scenery, very different than what I'm used to. Again, I was just captivated by these hills, by the shapes of the valleys and the mountains and the peaks, and the way that some of the buildings were built into the rock. It was just so different. And along the way, our tour guide was telling us all this cool information and about all the movies that they filmed there, because it's an extremely popular area for Hollywood, for filmmakers. So that was pretty cool. And our destination that morning was the Alhambra, which is a beautiful palace. It's huge as well. So it took like 3 or 4 hours to do this whole tour. And our tour guide was amazing. He had so much cool information. He was very funny and friendly, and it just added to the experience of walking around. I was a bit overwhelmed by like how beautiful it was, how intricate. And I mean, I'm just going to show you clips of it because it was so gorgeous. But I felt like our time there was kind of perfect because we had been walking all morning, then we had a nice lunch, and then we went to another area. It was like an overlook, which was so gorgeous. We could see the Alhambra from a distance, as well as many of the rooftops around it. And we just sat there for like half an hour to an hour and painted, which was kind of interesting because it's such a popular spot. There were a lot of people around us, and our group was in this little cluster painting the view. And we had so many people come up to us and ask what we're doing, or if they could take photos of our work or selfies with us. It was really funny, but there was such a good energy there. After that, we were absolutely knackered, and I think most people slept on the bus ride. We did stop for like 1 or 2 pictures, but I think, yeah, we just wanted to get back to the finca and eat the delicious food and then hit the hay. And I was definitely glad that the next day was a studio day because I was so tired. I had a lot of coffees that day. And I wanted to start simple, so we did a bunch of basic brush exercises or like mark making exercises to warm up. And then I did one of my favorite demos, which is a big dramatic sky scene from Scotland. I did this at the France retreat well, and people really enjoyed it. And it's just a fun demo because it's very watery and washy, and you can practice so many different techniques with this demo. And then after another lovely lunch, we went back to the studio and I did a coastal demo with gouache because the following day we were going to head to the coast. So I wanted to prepare everyone for that a little bit, and it was also one of my favorite subjects, an area on the Isle of Skye. I've painted this view many, many times, and I always do it a little different each time. But I loved this subject. It was a fun, colorful study, and everyone did so well with this scene. I was really, really impressed. And also, again, because the next day we were going to the coast, we were just trying to solidify some of these techniques and ideas before we went outside. And I really enjoyed that day because it felt like by then most of us had become pretty good friends or you know, just gotten to know each other, and there were like more jokes flying around and banter, and it was just really fun. Like hanging out with everyone in the studio, being around that energy was so uplifting. After the afternoon session, usually a few of us would go to the pool or walk around and capture more references and paint until dinner time. I think one of the tricky things about the retreats is how I need to balance like the work and the play. I need to make sure I protect my energy a little bit. So outside of the teaching sessions or the excursions, I need to really take advantage of the downtime and refresh my energy, which was pretty easy at this venue because the pool was so relaxing, the rooms were so comfortable, and I also just enjoyed hanging out in the studio watching people, not necessarily like inserting myself into it, just enjoyed being in their company. So yeah, I think I'm getting better at the work and the play part of these retreats and figuring out my energy levels. But my tendency is to want to do too much because I just get so excited. And I really have to kind of rein it in sometimes. But anyway, the next day after a gorgeous sunrise, I mean, I'm going to say that every day, aren't I? And by the way, each morning there was like a morning group, a morning session up on the top of the property. We would go up and watch the sunrise, and that was really fun. It was like a nice way to wake up. Not everyone did it, but a few people. And this is the day we were going to go to the coast later. So the morning session was all focused around painting the coast again. I did another gouache demo of one of my favorite scenes in Scotland, and everyone kind of did their own version of that. It was really fun to watch. And then we went to the most amazing spot overlooking the sea. We had lunch together there, and I think the owners of the venue also own this restaurant, so it was like perfect for us. And it was really beautiful to look out at the sea and the cliffs and the waves and everything. It got us nice and inspired. And then after, we headed to a couple different spots. It was a jam-packed afternoon. We had our tour guide bringing us to these cool locations, giving us all this information about them, and we could wander around and capture reference photos. But then we went to the highlight of the afternoon, which was an overlook or a lighthouse on the coast. And we watched the sunset there, and we painted for maybe an hour. We had made it there just in time for sunset. So it was like this feeling of being so inspired by how beautiful it was, but also wanting to get a painting in. So you're kind of rushing, but you're enjoying it, but you're stressed because it's like the sun is changing so quick. That's very typical for sunsets, but I always enjoy it because even though I don't ever paint like a complete thing at sunset, or maybe I don't even like my result, I love the feeling of being very aware of how the light is changing so quickly and how the colors change on the landscape. It's an incredible experience, and this particular location was stunning. So I had a lot of fun at that session. And then we woke up for our last main day of the retreat, which was one of my favorites because we took some time in the morning to paint and sketch, but then in the afternoon we dedicated it to laying out our sketchbooks or whatever we worked on that week and walking around and signing each other's sketchbooks or just, chatting about our experience in the week. I loved that because by then it felt like we were all at ease with each other. It was just such a fulfilling, rewarding experience. And I miss them so much already. That's actually been one of the really fun parts about these retreats is staying in touch with everyone. And I still stay in touch with my France group and now my Spain group. And yeah, just like growing that community around the world. Oh, and I have to have a special shout out to the chef because for lunch that day, he prepared paella and it was the most amazing paella I've ever had in my life, even though I haven't had a ton. It was spectacular. And he made a whole vegetarian version as well as a fish version, I guess. And oh my goodness, it like haunts my dreams. It was so good. And then of course for dinner, another great meal, and they popped some champagne for us. It was just a really fun way to celebrate the week. It's so bittersweet at the end of a retreat because you're buzzing on all this beautiful inspiration and energy and camaraderie. You're also really tired and you're missing your pets and your family like crazy. And it's just hard at the very end of it. A few people had to leave early for flights and stuff. So there was a small group of us at the very end just to say goodbye in the morning over breakfast. But then my adventure was going to continue. And one of the attendees and I shared a ride to Seville. I drove us back and we actually took the coastal route this time, which was really beautiful. But then I had a couple days in Seville by myself. So by then I was kind of in full holiday mode and it was all about sightseeing and being a tourist and painting and eating and shopping. I was amazed at how lush and just beautiful Seville was. It was also very, very crowded and busy. I guess it's that time of year. And also very, very hot. I didn't do much that first night except walk around and eat, basically, and sightsee. But the next day was my painting day. I gave myself a full day to explore Seville and paint or sketch. I wanted to keep my supplies very minimal because I knew it would be out all day. And it was so incredible to wander around these old streets and just soak in all the beautiful different types of architecture. There was such a variety of styles. I spent a lot of time at the cathedral, especially in the morning before it got too busy. I gave myself a time limit of like 30 to 60 minutes per sketch because I knew I wanted to see so much that day. But because the cathedral is so massive and detailed, like I realized I could not do it all. I had to like focus on little details basically. One thing I was really trying to focus on was not necessarily capturing the likeness of everything, but the colors or maybe one or two little details. I wanted to capture a sense of place so that when I flip through my sketchbook as well as look at the photos, I can just recall that feeling of being there. Very sunny and warm, and the colors were very happy. I mean, it was just a very unique experience for me being there. I fell in love with how many beautiful old tiles and colors there were in the architecture. So I have a lot of references of that. I also loved a lot of the sculptures, the roofs, like just so many things. I spent a fair bit of time wandering some of the gardens, which were gorgeous. So many huge, beautiful trees. I could have painted there all day, but I was trying to see a lot. But it was definitely a nice way to kind of cool off, to hide in the shade of the trees and just sit for like 20 minutes and sketch. But I really did want to soak up a lot of the architecture because that was so unique to me. I think my favorite sketch was actually at the Torre del Oro. I don't know exactly how to say it, but it was this huge column of a building, a tower, and I had accidentally used my non-waterproof ink pen for it, and I didn't realize it till I did the full sketch and then started adding the watercolor, and it was all bleeding. And I was like, oh no, not again. But I actually really like the result because it's very fun and it's just like a festive sketch. So yeah, it turned out to be a happy accident, and it definitely captures that feeling of like, oh well, I'm on holiday, just have fun. And the colors are very summery and Seville to me. Of course, I had lots of treats while I was wandering around, and at the end of the day, enjoyed a nice adult beverage while listening to live music on the street, which was so lovely. I was very much ready to go back to my hotel and relax and get an early night because it was an exhausting day. And the next day, I did do a tiny bit of sketching, but mostly I dedicated it to shopping and sightseeing. I had pinpointed some art stores I wanted to visit. I did a whole separate video about my art supply haul. I'll link that in the description if you want to check that out. So I won't show too much of that in this video, but I just enjoyed wandering around, spending time browsing in the art stores. I think I was a little bit overstimulated by like halfway through this day. There's just so many people and so much to see. I kind of hid away in an art museum for a while, just wandering around, checking out the old paintings, getting a bit of quiet time. And I think also it was good to stop at little cafes to just rest for a bit and have my headphones in with some nice relaxing music on. Yeah, it was a lot to take in. But I ended up sketching at the cathedral again, like later in the day, because that was close to my hotel. And I just wanted to get like a little bit more in. I only had like one page left in my sketchbook, so I wanted to capture something else. And I didn't quite fill in the last page. I have an idea for that though. But otherwise, I just did a little more sightseeing, a little more yarn shopping, and then headed back to my hotel. And I had an early flight the next morning, so I was like, I'll just chill out and wake up early for breakfast. Overall, it was a spectacular holiday and an even better art retreat. So I am very grateful for that experience and to everyone who attended with me. And also thank you for watching this video. I very much look forward to painting from these reference photos in the cold heart of winter. I now have glorious images of my France trip and my Spain trip to brighten my mood and inspire me all winter. I think I'm going to also do a painting where I combine the art supplies I bought in France and Spain. I think that would be really fun. A mixed media spread or something like that. Yeah. For now, though, I have a lot going on in the background, which I will share with you all soon. And I think the next time you see me, it will be some kind of painting video. I need to have a nice routine again. I need to get back into a daily sketching routine, just get grounded again, because yeah, that was a lot of travel. It was a lot. So I'm looking forward to that. Maybe we'll do a couple live streams, who knows? So thank you all for hanging out with me, and I hope you had fun in this little adventure video. And I will see you all again soon. So take care. Talk to you later.